I do not want our county to be completely bulldozed over by the industrial machine that is out there and targeting us right now. That's my main issue. And it boils down to, from a rights perspective, these machines impact far beyond the four corners of the property that they're installed on. My right to swing my fist stops where your nose begins, right? I can't just go around swinging and hitting people. That don't work. The same thing on my property. I can't do something that absolutely negatively impacts my neighbor and not be held responsible for it or liable for it. That's what we're talking about. This is not a small ice cream shop on Main Street. It's a massive industrial complex. That's why I'm standing up so hard against this. So I'm going to pause, and I think we've got some microphones that we can run around, but now would love to take any Q&A just on industrial wind in general, the specific projects, what's going on at the Capitol, any kind of legislation or approach, anything like that. Would love to take questions at this point. But thank you guys so much again for coming out tonight. It's really, really important.
I'm a big mouth, so I think they can hear me pretty good. I talk loud. Anyway, okay. You said they've got 1/4 of what they need here in Northeast Lincoln County. Or Northwest, I'm sorry. If that's the case, where are they? Because there's a lot of that area that is unusable for them. Where are they looking at? Are they looking at north of 105? How far south of 105 are they going? How far east are they looking at going? Okay, that's my first question.
All right. They want, there it was, go back. There it is. See the lines on that map? That's their whole project area. They want it all. They want it everywhere, okay? And we don't know where they're going. Whoever's arm they can twist first, or whoever they can persuade is where they're going to go. If it were me, I'd be focused up there by the big block in the corner, and that's probably where they are.
A lot of that came from one individual, too.
Yeah, two brothers is what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's right. But still, they want to fill in around there is where they want to be, you know.
And they're the same brothers who swore down that they would not go with this, but money talks.
Right, so when I met with Apex, they originally were planning for this whole boundary and about 100 turbines, okay? In order for them, they're already filed with the Southwest Power Pool. They're in the queue. That queue takes years for them to move through that whole process. They had to have, I think, at least 20 to 25% of their total project viable for them to get into the queue, which is where they're at. They're at 25%. But they basically said that they would be willing to try to cut that down to half. So they're still half of what they would really like before they start trying to move the process even further. So,
most of the projects that are in Oklahoma produce, on average, around 300 megawatts annually, correct?
Correct. They're shooting for 200.
Okay, that's what they're shooting for. What is their break even? What do they have to have? Because here's what I could see happening. Well, if we go in and start small, we can expand later. What's the potential for that?
Oh yeah, it's there. One of the things that they told Jim was, it doesn't matter if it takes us 8 or 10 years, we're just going to keep working it. They've done that before in other places, right?
They've done, and yeah, they said that they would.
Who's next?
The last project that they just came online with took them about 8 to 10 years to lease up, but I still believe when the federal subsidies start to wind down, I think that attitude changes. I don't see how they continue to stay as persistent on some of these projects for that long.
I have already done tons of research on the amount of earthquakes that we had around Kearney, right where I live, and I have brought up in front of Apex that you are not supposed to build wind turbines in high seismic activity areas. In a 9-year period, Kearney had 203 earthquakes in a 9-year period. I know, because I live there and I felt a lot of them. But I asked Apex, are you prepared? Because if you build wind turbines in a seismic area, an active seismic area, you have to have specifically built wind turbines that are made to withstand the seismic activity. I asked Apex if they were prepared to do that. They said, we'll do whatever we need to do. I know that they get out of all kinds of things. What assurance do we have from our county commissioners or whoever is in charge of giving an okay or allowing them? How do we have a guarantee or something in writing that says that specifically?
The current regulatory body that I think would probably regulate that would be the Oklahoma Corporation Commission, but it still boils down to we have no state statutes in place to actually enforce anything like that. We're so far away from that, it's not even funny. Next question. Right here.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
I kind of wanted to bring up the point that we were told that it was up to us to stop this by going out and talking to our neighbors and convince them that this isn't a good idea. 1,000 acres is going to be in queue for solar, and about 10,000 acres is in queue for solar on state school land. And so did some research, and I guess now the state, the CLO, is opening up renewable energy projects on state school land for 55 years. Do you have any information regarding that information?
I know CLO will offer up to 30 to 55 year leases for industrial tracts. On ag land, if any of you have leased ag land on CLO land, it's only 5 year, right? But no, I know the CLO has toyed with that. I do know that some of those CLO commissioners have voted on, I'm going to say, our side of this topic in a few different items that they voted on at the commission. Most of the time when some people in this room have showed up to put some pressure on them when they vote on something like that. But no, the ability for CLO to go out and do that is a concern of mine, for sure. There was some legislation to try to regulate exactly how they could use some of that land for solar or not, but yeah, we've got a lot more work to do on that. Next one.
You had a couple questions on the county thing you mentioned. The road usage agreements that Thomas mentioned, are those in the works? Do we have those for the county? And also going back to the county option, what does that look like? You mentioned that what SB2 has, how exactly does that work? What's the county option? What exactly is that and how would it work? So I guess like 2 questions there for the county, I guess.
So on the road use, my understanding was you guys had been working, or maybe it was Will up in the UNL side, was working on something, but I don't think there's a road use agreement in place today. Is that right? Okay. So there's no road use agreement in place today. UNL is a lot further along than Apex. So the one up near Cushing, I think Commissioner Fine is going to be working on a road use agreement soon, or is actively working on one. The county option language in Senate Bill 2, the way that Senate Bill 2 worked, there was this huge argument between people in the western part, let me rephrase this, the legislators in the western part of the state saying that we don't mind the wind turbines, we like them, we've had them for 30 years, they're great. But all of us on the eastern side of the state said we don't want them, our people don't want them, so how do we figure this out? So Senate Bill 2 really had a filtering mechanism that basically said the setbacks and everything else in the bill, because of the way that we filtered it out, wouldn't impact the western part of the state, west of I-35 at all, right out the gate, but east of I-35, minus, I think, Push or maybe Paw County, would be subject to the regulations immediately. So it was in a way, a sort of compromise. It was okay. But long story short, the county option would have given counties the ability to opt into the setback language if they were not already in the regulatory environment because of where they fell, east or west. But then it would allow the county commissioners, or by a vote of the people, to extend the setback distance, which I think was, again, 1.5 times the tip height or half a mile from a home. again, that's really short. So you could extend it, you could reduce it at any level. There was no cap, no floor, no ceiling on it. So it really just gave, in my opinion, it gave the state a minimum standard to say this is what we think it should be, or what we're willing to do from a state perspective, but then let the counties play with those distances, for whatever makes sense for you guys by county. So that's what the county language in Senate Bill 2 is designed to do today.
I had someone ask me a couple of questions the other day. I was passing the flyers. They think that the wind turbines have the power of eminent domain over the smaller landowners to get their power to a grid. What do you say about that one?
I have not heard of a wind or solar company try to use eminent domain. I've heard plenty of stories, and for those of you that are in the Perkins area, a lot of folks in that area and even north, further into Payne County, on the high transmission lines, the high voltage transmission lines, those companies have been threatening eminent domain. There has been argument on whether or not they have that capability. Those are private companies, but they are installing infrastructure that's going to be used for public utility consumption, which by state statute would give that entity technically eminent domain potential. But from a wind and solar perspective, no. That is not something that I believe is an option or a tool for them, and I have not heard of any of those companies try to flex that in this area or elsewhere.
I'd like to back up and ask a little question about that data center information. I know personally landowners that have been approached to sell. I know personally some that on that south of Stroud that said they would sell, and some that wouldn't. We were told that they needed to have a whole mile section without anybody living on it, and had to be close to that power grid, and they needed water. My question is, so rumor, verbally been told, they've been approached to sell, and now a representative that said, that it does have legs. How does the average citizen follow that before it's a done deal? So how do we know? Who do we inquire on tracking that?
Well, it's maybe not entirely a huge surprise that those companies aren't coming to my office to let me know that they're coming into Lincoln County. They're more than welcome to come and talk to me. My door's always open. But honestly, when we start to hear those things, my biggest encouragement to you would be show up to the next city council meeting, bring it up, ask them about it, because I guarantee you, if they're trying to buy land anywhere close to that municipality boundary, they've talked to the city council. Now, what I did hear yesterday, supposedly, is that particular data center company, and I'm still trying to get information on it myself, they said that they were not requiring NDAs, which is abnormal, number one. Number two, they said that they were only going to require like 7,000 gallons of water a week. Any new data center coming into this state that is in current like 2026 era, not trying to build a facility that's back in like 2010, is using hundreds of thousands to millions of gallons of water per day. And they're saying they're only going to require a couple thousand, 5,000 a week. I don't buy it. Especially when this person that shared the information said, yeah, it's going to be a 7-year construction window, and it's going to be 2,000 people to put it, to construct it. That's not a small scale facility that's only going to use a couple thousand gallons of water a day. So I'm not necessarily too comfortable with the facts that I've received so far. But in terms of how do you get to the bottom of it, I would start at Stroud City Council at their next meeting.
So even though it's city and it's not county, because this land is being tried to purchase it in the county, not city jurisdiction, and it's technically not Stroud, it's Davenport.
Okay, so that makes more sense because I've heard Davenport as well. It depends. It honestly depends on where they're going to get their power and where they're going to get their water. Are they going to contract with the city of Stroud to pull off of their water? Wherever their water contracts are at. Even though the land may be outside of the municipality, I still think that there's probably going to be some level of coordination or contractual agreements with the city. I would think. I could be wrong. And so if it is purely on the county, then we got a couple of guys here maybe just one left. Bless your heart. But I would go to the next county commission meeting as well. No, there he is. I thought you left.
I wanted to ask, I've listened too much now, my questions are gone. One of the things you said in the beginning of your opening statement was that somebody had reported to you that the county had the ability to enforce regulations and stop things like this, but they didn't cite any kind of a statute or a rule.
They did. There's plenty of. I just didn't include it in my opening because I didn't want to spend the time on it. But I've got the information. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, send that to us.
Okay.
And I think the other two commissioners, I'm not positive, but Geronimo, I think, is the name of the AI data center that's being talked about south of Stroud, and they're very open and said they're not going to be here if the public doesn't want them. And they said they've got 9 places that they've looked at and identified as ideal for them, and somebody will want them, and they don't want to be here if they're not welcome. They said they don't want to be a part of any NDAs, and I can get you their information if it's something you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Please, thank you. And I'll share that information on the statutes from O'Connor. Other questions? You got one in the far back, one here, and then one in the far back.
We had gone to, we're in Logan County, and we went to the Rural Water District meeting and talked to the board about a possible data center going in near Marshall. And we were able to share some information that the board did not, or would be used too many gallons and blah, blah, blah. So we were able to actually give them some information. And I don't know if you guys are on rural water, but that's another option to go and explain what's going on too, unless they already know. But
well, I think that just underscores this industry is evolving so rapidly, right? I mean, AI in general, but especially these data centers. I mean, the data centers that we've had across Oklahoma for so long are not even close to what we're talking about with these AI data centers or hyperscale data centers. They're massively different facilities. The water is a big issue. And so my biggest concern with these going out here in the middle of rural areas, you think about all the farmers and ranchers, their livelihood depends on access to groundwater, aquifers, local bodies of water, whatever it is. These things, they suck up a ton of water.
I wanted to get a couple of points clarified because the acoustics in this room are not real great and my hearing isn't either. But in the discussion of water, are we talking about these construction sites that the wind turbine companies are supposed to be putting in, should that come to pass, hopefully not, are going to be using large amounts of water, or are we talking about water for a different purpose? I heard the term AI.
Yeah, sorry, we had transitioned from the wind turbines for a minute to AI data centers and the amount of water that the AI data centers use, which is millions of gallons of water per day sometimes.
Okay, so I secondhand knowledge, but my son is currently building the mega center in Abilene, and they have a 7-stack gas-powered generator there, turbine generator that's just for the site. Each stack will produce 1.3 megawatts of power. So you do the math, that tells you how much that site's going to need. A lot of that water is for cooling towers, but those cooling tower waters, after they're cycled through a few times, are contaminated and they have to be discharged. And where are they discharged? And how does it affect the groundwater? And how does it affect crops? And how does that affect livestock, etc.?
We already know, as a state, we don't really do a great job of wastewater treatment and how we deal with wastewater, so don't get me started on that. I can't not talk about it, I guess, every time I go and speak somewhere. Who else we got?
All right, there's a young lady here who's lost her voice, and so she typed it out for me. She says, is wind power reliable during cold and heat. You want to answer that, or you want me to tell my story?
You go ahead.
In that big winter storm that we had a couple of weeks ago, you know how you can get on the SPP website and you can see how much power is being generated by all the different facilities in the state and all across the area. During that 4 or 5 days of really cold weather, wind generated 0. When you need it, it ain't there. Sounds like a lot of husbands I've heard about. But also, during the interim study that was done last fall, the Secretary of Energy was there, and he had one of his statisticians, and he talked about the hot summertime of August. And he had a graph that showed it. And when it was over 100 degrees and no wind, you know how much power was being generated by wind? 0. So if it's not reliable, how bad do you need it? And if it's not reliable and you got to rely on solar, well, maybe solar, but natural gas or hydropower or nuclear, you've got to have the full-blown capacity to deliver when it's important. So as ratepayer, you're paying to have that extra. That's like having a spare car sitting in your driveway because you only need one car, but what if it don't work? So as ratepayers, we are paying extra to have the power there, and the wind's not helping us.
Which then, they'll try to tell you the argument, well, that's why we want to put in the battery energy storage system, so we can bring that energy in and store it and then put it on the grid and dispatch it when we need it. All that is energy arbitrage. They're buying it from wind and solar when it's really cheap, and then they're putting it on the grid at a higher price so they can make a profit, and then who's paying the higher price? We are. Yes, ma'am.
This is 2 parts. When they're bringing those 300-foot wind of the wings and the towers, our county roads, how are they going to turn to get those 300 feet blades alone to the places? And when they dispose of those, there is a disposal place west of Perkins. It's horrible just to see. And I mean, when you have the fibers coming off, but when they're storing them and the rains come and it leaches into the groundwater and off into our water sources, what is our recourse to that? Getting them onto the places and then disposing of them.
Yes, this is where Representative Jenkins probably hates me a little bit, but she helped a little bit too. So when they were disposing of those blades up in Cushing, it was on the south end of Cushing in my district. And we said, hey, you're not doing it right, you don't have the right permits, stop. And so they stopped. Well, then they stopped and relocated further down Highway 33 out into her district. So now it's her problem. In total, yeah, it's your problem. You're welcome. Yeah, so their DEQ and Corporation Commission, I think, have each some different regulatory measures on the sites where they're putting the turbine blades, the graveyards, either from an air pollution standpoint or ground pollution or what have you, as well as transport. As of now, based on whatever regulatory measures are currently in place, they are, I believe, in compliance finally. They struck out like 3 or 4 times and they kept getting mulligans from the agencies, but now they've got their paperwork and I think they're doing it the way that it's supposed to be done. It's still not right, I don't think. In terms of transporting the blades and all that through county roads, I don't see how it's physically possible. I mean, they do promise the county commissioners that they're going to come in and they're going to improve the roads and do all that, but some of these bridges, they can't take that, the corn, all that. I mean, yeah, they find a way, but it's going to bulldoze over somebody's corner or part of their property to get to it, right?
Jim, can I answer some of that?
Yes, sir, please.
So it's my understanding is if they will come off the main highways and they will utilize most of that lease to build new roads and access the rest of that turbine project of 20,000 acres. But they will use main highways to come in to those project sites, and the county roads will be used, and they do have a 60-foot easement, is my understanding, and will clear trees out if they need be. And so any of those leaseholders that has that land, they have the right to go ahead and clear all the trees out if they need to. It could be a staging area, it could be used as roads, it could be used for any of that type of stuff. But at the very first of this, I thought they would be using every kind of road to get to it, but I was told that they use access points for main highways, and they'll go ahead and build their own roads.
Which makes sense and lines up with another speaker that I had at the interim study. She's from the Bull Hall, Orlando area, and there's a big wind complex out there, and she has been very vocal in the community about her regret of signing a wind turbine lease, and she was very vocal in the interim study about the horrific situation that she's been in with that wind company out there and how negligent they've been, in pictures of, yeah, they have an easement that they work with and they have the right to, you know, create the path that they want, but they go way beyond that and they start taking out a ton of other trees. And what would be good, I don't know how many of you are on Facebook or not, but we'll repost a link to the interim study from last year on the post that we did to try to promote tonight. So we'll put that out there, and if you have some time, I mean, it is a little lengthy, at least my portion I think was an hour and a half maybe. But if you have time, it's got a lot of good information. So we'll kind of bring that back up, and if you guys will take a look at that, that would be great.
We do have one other question here. It's past the time you wanted to go, so I'll just say this ought to be the last one. We want to talk about the rally too, as soon as this is over.
We'll talk about that too.
Slide out.
Okay, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Is the state turnpike authority or the county building a new county road to access the railroad yard in Wellston? It will come out on 66 at the bridge. There's a new road.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Who's in bed? Is that the wind turbine? Because they brought the poles out, the new high line out the old county road. Now it's a straight shot out, down, and the big turns to go east or west on 166.
Yeah.
Whose road is that? Is that county road or is that the turnpike authority road?
So my understanding, I mean, a lot of that work that's been done out that way with the bridge, you know, reconstruction and all that, because it touched the turnpike and it would also touch 66, was some joint effort between ODOT and OTA. That particular road that's being done, kind of at one of those the old off ramp there, was, I don't think it's not you. I don't know if it'll end up becoming y'all's road or not, but I think ODOT. Lee.
Yeah, so that road that's built outside the railroad yard was built primarily by OTA, for OTA's use. I use that railroad yard. I haul in a lot of rock that way. It's going to be really good to have that there, but that's what that road was built, was for OTA, so they can haul on all their new bridge projects that they're doing in the county.
Okay. Was there one more question? Was somebody had Honora? Okay, we'll do two more, Honora and you, sir, and then we'll close out.
This is more information for people who maybe haven't been involved since the beginning, and correct me if anything has changed since then, but one of the things that we had a state representative from the school board come in at one of the earlier meetings in Chena, and one of the things that they kind of push is, well, school revenue. But one of the school members that came in to speak at one of the meetings we had at the Interpretive Center made us aware that even if the school gets revenue from these wind turbines or solar projects, that is earmarked for specific use, and that also takes state money then comes away from there. So the school is not actually getting any more money if there's wind turbines put in. So I just want to make sure people are aware of that. If they hear that, well, it's going to be good for our schools. It makes zero difference. In fact, it actually, because that money is earmarked for special things, it can actually take away from the school in certain aspects.
I think you're exactly right, and it's really kind of typical state government and funding and how we deal with our budget. We'll promise this stuff to go over here, but then we'll take it back off the bottom somewhere else, right? So the net is really zero, but they still delivered on the promise that the extra money is going in. And to your point, the earmark, I do believe it doesn't go to the classroom. It doesn't go to teachers. It goes to facilities or athletics or what have you, right? So I think that's what you're talking about in terms of how it's earmarked. So it is intentional in where it goes. Yes, sir. Last question.
How many of our politicians has been greased a little bit to get some of this stuff through?
I am so glad we're going to end on that question. That is perfect. Let me put it this way. So there's some people in here that, and I mean, quite a few people in here probably that can tell you and show you how to do the research. There's followthemoney.org. There's different websites where you can see. But I would almost bet the farm that if you looked at the top 10 most powerful people in the House and the Senate, each top 10 to 20, okay, that are in leadership, that pretty much run the place, in the top 3 to 5 of their highest donors since they've been in office, at least one of them is going to be a green energy company. Okay, so the wind lobby in the state of Oklahoma specifically has been super active. Last year, when we started moving the conversation a whole lot further down the field than they thought that we would on House Bill 2751, which became Senate Bill 2, with the setbacks and the county option and all that, it scared them to death. And I had some other guys tell me we are seeing exponentially more wind lobby guys in the Capitol on a day-to-day basis because this conversation is going far. So I mean, for what it's worth, I guess we're making them work for it a little bit harder the last couple of years, which is a good thing. But no, that wind lobby has been massive in our state for a long time.
Were lobbies supposed to be done away with by all these promises and stuff?
So, I mean, we can get into some other pieces of legislation. I had a bill that would ban taxpayer-funded lobbying. Didn't get heard. They didn't like that. But no, I will tell you this. I would say 99% of lobbyists are probably there for not good reasons, not reasons that you and I would believe in. It's not 100%, I'll tell you that. There's a few that I personally talk to, and they're on the right side of certain things. Maybe not everything, but certain things. But the vast majority of them, I mean, I only see one or two occasionally. The rest of them steer clear of our hallway, especially with Representative Jenkins. All right, so closing out, we've got a rally coming to the Capitol on Saturday, March 7th, from 1 to 3 o'clock. Okay, so this is intentionally on a Saturday because who in here can show up Monday through Friday at like 10 a.m.? Not very many, right? And so the decision was made to try to have a rally on a Saturday, on a weekend where more people can come. So last year, on the very first day of session, on organizational day, we had a rally at the Capitol. There was maybe 250, 300 people there, which inside the Capitol in the rotunda, was pretty packed. That was great, and it really set a tone and sent a message to the legislature that it was going to be a big priority for a lot of people. We're having this on March 7th, which is a week, I think, leading into the final week before we have to have bills out of one chamber and then send them over to the other. So this is kind of our last moment to really put the pressure on and tell that building we're still serious about the issue, right? We're still serious about it's primarily being broadcast as wind, but in my opinion, it's green energy in general, right? From my perspective. So please put it on your calendar, 1 to 3 o'clock, March 7th on Saturday. We've had a national organization that fights wind projects all across the country. They reached out to us and they wanted to help. This is part of how they're helping us. They're helping organize it and put it together. There's some marketing stuff that's going to be coming out over the next week or two. And they're doing it all. They're not asking us to pitch in or anything like that, which is great. And so far, they've been really good to work with. So please try to come out. And we're all going to pray for good weather. It's March, so you never know around here. But yes, ma'am. Good question. It is going to be outdoors, so we are going to be asking we're going to be praying for good weather. So we're trying to get a ton of people there. And I'm going to start pushing it more too. I had to get through the last couple of weeks with bills and deadlines and stuff like that. But we're going to start broadcasting it as heavily as we can. So please, if you can, make it up there. There's going to be a pretty good roster of speakers. Representative Jenkins is going to be a speaker. We've got maybe 10 or 15 total people. Tom has it up. Thank you.
13 speakers.
Yeah.
26 sponsoring organizations. This is the one that the Republican Party chairwoman has. You got Movement 32 here. You've got So Far, which is Sandra Trawick, y'all know, here at the Iowa Tribe. 26 organizations are sponsoring this. Republican Women of Oklahoma City, Republican Women of Tulsa, OK Grassroots, a whole bunch of folk. We need over 500 people there. And this is going to be different than any other rally that we've ever had or that you've ever been involved with. They're going to be videoing this. This national organization is going to take videos of this. They're going to make a good promotional type piece and story. They're going to get it on Fox News and all that sort of thing. So we need a good showing. And these speeches are going to be very brief, 3 or 4 minutes, or we'll lock you up. So I'm not speaking, as y'all could guess. I volunteered not to go to jail that day. So anyway, we really need y'all to come. We need to bring your neighbors, your friends. This is statewide. The speakers, we got one here from Stillwater area, one from down around Ada, one from Mounds, one from the southeast part of the state. Mike Macy, the governor candidate, from I think Broken Arrow. Matt Code with the Oil and Gas Workers Association, and then John Spence from up in Craig County. So this is lots of county folks from eastern Oklahoma. They're participating. Some of them are talking about bringing buses. We need over 500 people there, and it's going to be rowdy, loud, quick. We want a lot of cheering. We want a lot of, what's the word for it? The sound bites. That's the kind of speeches we're going to have. Did y'all see that one yesterday? The president had in his office, the lady, the grandma that was on there, and boy, she was about 30 seconds, and she had a good speech. I'd like to have her come speak for us. But anyway, so that's what we need. We need everybody to be there, please.
So there's parking on the south side of the Capitol. There's visitor parking on that side, and it'll be probably on that side of the building that will have the rally set up and all that. So look for more of that to be coming out online. If you need a way to get a hold of me, please let me know. I can give you my card, or follow me on social media. I'm going to be pushing a ton of this stuff on social media. And then tomorrow morning, if you are free and want breakfast, come out to Stroud. We've got a legislative breakfast at 8 o'clock down at the high school. So thank you guys so much for coming. God bless you. Really, really appreciate you coming out tonight.
One more thing. I want to personally thank Tom.
Yes.
He's been dedicated to this. He's been so fact-based, civil, polite, and I just want to thank you for setting the bar.
Thank y'all. Be sure to take some of these. I got all these handouts. Those 2 slides that I had up there about the lightning and about the cattle feedlots. I have those on a handout that you can take home, and you use those.